Welcome to The Explainer. We're jumping straight in today because we are looking at a fundamental, ground-up shift in how the world operates online. We're going to examine a story from December 2025 that, at first glance, might just sound like your standard, run-of-the-mill cybersecurity headline. Big company gets breached, millions of records stolen, right? We hear it all the time. But once we actually peel back the layers of this specific incident, we uncover a completely terrifying paradigm shift. We're going to see exactly how artificial intelligence has completely rewritten the rules of cyber warfare, shifting the balance of power in ways we quite literally couldn't have imagined just a few years ago.
Okay, let's dive into it. December 4th, 2025. Authorities in Osaka, Japan make an arrest under the Unauthorized Access Prohibition Act. A hacker had managed to run malicious code and extract the personal data of over 7 million users. The target was Kaikut's Club, which is Japan's absolute largest internet cafe chain. That is a massive breach. 7 million people whose personal data was suddenly sitting right in the hands of a criminal.
Now, usually when we hear about a heist of this magnitude, we expect the motivation to be, state-sponsored espionage or maybe some multi-million-dollar ransomware play by a massive organized syndicate. But when authorities actually interrogated the attacker, who, by the way, turned out to be just 17 years old, his motivation was slightly more absurd. He did it because he wanted to buy Pokémon cards. Yeah, really. But here's the massive, world-altering twist in this whole story. This teenager had absolutely zero technical background. None.
Section 1. The new hacker profile. No coding required. Because this teenager in Osaka wasn't just some bizarre outlier, he actually represents a terrifying paradigm shift in who can actually execute a devastating cyber attack today. Think back to the 1990s. The face of cybercrime was always the computing wonderkind. Figures like Kevin Mitnick, these brilliant engineers whose technical abilities just completely outpaced their judgment. In that pre-AI era, pulling off a major breach required incredibly deep coding knowledge or a highly coordinated team of specialists. But in the post-AI era, that barrier to entry has completely evaporated. Gone. We are now seeing single actors with absolutely zero coding background, wielding agentic AI to cause catastrophic damage. It means anyone, anywhere, with an internet connection can suddenly be a top-tier threat.
And throughout 2025, we saw this exact scenario play out over and over again. Take February, for instance. 3 young teenagers, again, zero coding skills, used ChatGPT to hammer Rakuten Mobile's systems 220,000 times just to fund online gambling. Wild, right? By July, a single actor using Claude Code, which is a very sophisticated genetic platform, orchestrated a massive extortion campaign against 17 different organizations in a single month. And the AI didn't just write the malware. It organized the stolen files, it analyzed financial records to set the ransom amounts, it even drafted the extortion emails. And then, by December, another solo individual used a combination of models like Claude and ChatGPT to breach the Mexican government, walking away with 195 million taxpayer records. These are large-scale, incredibly complex operations being run end-to-end by solitary individuals relying entirely on AI.
Section 2. The AI threat multiplier. Bad numbers go up. Because while these individual stories are definitely shocking, we absolutely have to look at the hard data to understand just how rapidly this threat is escalating across the board. The sheer scale of the problem is staggering. Just look at the massive jump in malicious packages hiding in public software repositories. These are basically the digital libraries where developers go to share code. In 2022, according to Sonatype, we were dealing with about 55,000 malicious packages. By 2025, that number skyrocketed to nearly 500,000, 454,600 to be exact. And it is absolutely no coincidence that the biggest leaps here perfectly align with the release of GPT-4 in 2023 and then the explosion of agentic coding platforms in 2025. The tools got better, so the volume of attacks just went straight through the roof.
So why did the volume increase that much? Well, check out how insanely capable these models have become at writing software. The SWE bench is essentially the gold standard test for software development capabilities based on resolving real-world GitHub issues. In August 2024, the top frontier models could resolve about 33% of those issues. Not bad, but by December 2025, that success rate had shot up to nearly 81%. I really want you to connect the dots here. As AI gets incredibly good at writing legitimate, helpful software, it simultaneously and completely unavoidably supercharges offensive cyber capabilities. Because the tool that can flawlessly write a web app can just as flawlessly write a devastating virus.
Section 3. The vanishing exploit window. A shrinking window. This dramatic increase in speed and capability explains why the threat landscape is accelerating way beyond our human limits to defend it.
Security professionals measure something called time to exploit. Basically, this is the gap between when a software vulnerability is first made public and when an actual working attack for that vulnerability is spotted out in the wild. Back in 2020, defenders had a pretty comfortable safety buffer of about 700 days. That's almost 2 full years to figure out a fix. By 2025, AI development shoved that window down to just 44 days. And by 2026, it collapsed entirely, less than 24 hours.
In fact, the situation has accelerated so fast that the Mandiant M Trends 2026 report actually coined a shocking new term: negative time to exploit. This is the horrifying new reality where hackers are routinely deploying exploits for vulnerabilities out in the real world before the software vendor even has a patch ready. The report noted that over 28% of all vulnerabilities are now exploited within 24 hours of disclosure. Think about that. Human defenders literally cannot type fast enough to stop these AI-driven attacks.
Section 4. Why patching is dead. Outpaced by AI. Because this arms race so heavily favors the attackers right now, we have to completely pivot our understanding of cybersecurity. The old model of patching is just fundamentally broken.
The crucial point is right here in this one number, 74 days. According to the EdgeScan 2025 Vulnerability Statistics Report, this is the average time it takes an organization to remediate a known high-severity vulnerability. Let's do the math on that. If it takes your IT team 74 days to apply a patch, but the attackers only need 44 days, or as we just saw, less than 24 hours to weaponize it, you've already lost. You are functionally defenseless for weeks.
And honestly, the reality is actually much worse than that 74-day average suggests. This stat right here should literally keep every IT director awake at night. In large companies, we're talking over 1,000 employees, 45% of vulnerabilities never get remediated. Almost half. They just sit there permanently exposed to the internet, waiting for an AI agent to stumble across them. The sheer complexity and scale of modern software have just completely overwhelmed human IT departments.
If you want to know what that overwhelming complexity looks like in practice, look no further than the Shai Hulud attack from September 2025. This wasn't just some quick smash and grab. This was a highly sophisticated supply chain attack targeting the NPM ecosystem, the world's largest registry for software developers. It compromised over 500 packages, breached 487 organizations, and stole about $8.5 million. But here is the really scary part. The reason it was so successful. The AI-generated malware perfectly mimicked legitimate code. It included fake documentation, it had unit tests, it was structured beautifully. Traditional static analysis tools and signature scanners missed it entirely because to a scanner, it just looked like perfectly normal, helpful software.
Which brings us to a really powerful realization, beautifully summed up by ChainGuard CEO Dan Lawrence. He said, "The complexity and scale of vulnerability management has outgrown the capabilities of most organizations to manage on their own. We just can't keep hiring more human defenders to play an endless game of whack-a-mole against tireless AI agents. We need a fundamental, pragmatic shift in how we build and secure our systems."
Section 5. Deleting attack categories. Structural fixes. Because if we can't outrun these AI-powered attacks on their own terms, we have to structurally eliminate the battlefield entirely. The smartest approach now isn't trying to patch faster, it's hitting delete on entire categories of vulnerabilities so you never even have to patch them in the first place. That is the philosophy behind solutions like ChainGuard libraries. By entirely rebuilding open source libraries from verified, attributable source code, they render whole categories of attacks structurally impossible. You don't have to worry about an AI exploiting dependency confusion or taking over your CI/CD pipeline, the automated assembly line for your software. You don't have to worry about long-lived token theft or package distribution attacks, because the structure of the software itself physically prevents those vectors from even existing. Think about the incredible peace of mind this offers. The old reality was just constant panic. Every time a major supply chain attack hit, organizations were scrambling, instituting total code freezes, working through the weekend just trying to figure out if they were compromised. But the new reality, powered by structural mitigation, is totally different. When the next big attack happens, you're literally reading about it calmly over your morning coffee, knowing that your production systems and developer workstations are already protected by default.
And the data absolutely backs up this structural approach. When ChainGuard libraries were tested against over 8,700 known malicious NPM packages, they successfully blocked 99.7% of them. They also blocked roughly 98% of malicious Python packages. This isn't about scanning for bad code hoping you catch it. It's about building an environment where bad code simply cannot function. It's a massive triumph for structural security.
Which brings us to the most critical question of all, and the one I really want to leave you with today. The tools enabling these attacks are getting cheaper, they're getting faster, and they're getting more accessible by the hour. If a completely non-technical teenager in Osaka can easily steal 7 million records today just to buy trading cards, what on earth is 2027 going to look like when frontier AI models have their capabilities dialed all the way up to a 10? The time to adopt structural security measures isn't after the next breach, it's right now. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay safe out there, and I highly encourage you to look deeper into structural mitigations for your own systems.